Hello, and thank you for your interest in the Influence Champions Guide. I'm very glad you opened this video because I'm here to help you go through this guide and help you really boost your influence at work. All these mergers, restructurings, layoffs, the world is not that easy and it changes at very fast pace. And the more it changes, the more your company restructures, the more you need to be heard and the more your vision needs to be seen. Every change goes together with an opportunity that we know, all of us. But how should we make it work? Who should we talk to first? What should be the next steps? So, this Influence Champion Guide offers an approach, a very concrete step-by-step approach with a 7-day work plan to help you boost your personal influence. And I've been there. When I was a strategic communicator working at executive committee level, I have been there. I have wished that my voice would be heard. I have suffered from isolation. I was wondering what it should take to be listened to. And this is actually the reason why I decided to focus on steps that would be needed and that happen to be needed by all of us in order for each of us to double our influence at work. So, although you used to be heard, and even listened to after this last reorg, suddenly your word changed and you seem to have lost control over your own ecosystem, right? You feel isolated, you feel even overlooked and left with no drive, unsure of the way to convince decision makers while remaining subtle and open to some change, because there's no question that you're not against change per se. We are values driven managers, top managers, individual contributors. We are experts, we are professionals, we are not against change. But we don't want this particular change to be done that way. It is true that not everything depends on us. It takes two to tango, and very often the other party is not ready to listen. So I cannot say 100% you're going to double your influence at work. And I do understand that some situations are particularly tense and toxic corporate culture and discriminations do exist. However, whatever the context, there is a way to boost your influence at work, to get promoted, to get new budgets for greater impact. And this is what I'm going to show you now. So any attempt to become influential at work should start with a better understanding of one's ecosystem. And there are 3 steps that I would strongly advise you to implement from the very start. 1, build your own community, transform it into a platform for influence. Then reactivate dialogue and validate your notes about your colleagues' aspirations and needs. And 3, make an effort to understand their language and thought patterns. Oh, what is that? So, in the Influence Champions Guide, I highlight 3 essential NLP meta programs to better understand people around you. Neuro-linguistic programming, that we also call NLP, is based on the concept that our perception of reality is shaped by personal maps in our minds. And these maps are created based on our own experience and our own sensory experience. So it depends on not only our education and family education, but what you really felt at a particular moment. And there are mental filters, you can say, that help us prioritize the constant flow of information we receive. And it helps us align this information with our core beliefs and values. So we need them, and we all have them. And there are around 60 of them, so it's quite a lot. And they're never black or white. They represent a range of feelings, experiences, and mental frameworks. And so you find yourself somewhere in the range, never totally on one side or the other. And this position can also change depending on the circumstances. So it's quite complex to really understand these NLP meta programs. Our perception of the world and the decisions we make, they are deeply influenced by cognitive processes. They silently direct us through the complexities of the environment, and they shape our individual worldviews. So these meta programs, they help us understand people. They never help us manipulate people against their will. That doesn't work. However, better understanding how people think and why is actually very helpful, right? Because we know that people filter information. They either keep it or they let it go depending on their own cognitive experience. And therefore, it's quite good to have a basic knowledge of how people think and why, to choose your own language and to better communicate, to be more impactful in your communication. So make sure you remember one thing. These meta programs are about focus. They decide which piece of information should be kept really live in our thoughts and should be integrated. That's why they are so important for our communication. So the first one is about understanding what motivates people, whether they're driven by avoiding negatives, and we call it away from, or striving for positives, and we called it forward. You can ask an open question such as, what would you like to do about that? Very open, very neutral. And the answer is usually very telling. Away from means that people are mostly motivated to avoid negatives. They want to avoid pain. They want to constantly identify risks and to mitigate them. And their emphasis will be on safety and belonging. And towards, on the contrary, means that people seek positive outcomes and are motivated by concrete goals. They thrive on the rewards of success and are always curious about new perspectives. So take somebody who is wired away from pain and to avoid any risk. It would be awkward to go to such person and say, oh, I have such an idea. It's quite high risk, but the rewards are going to be fantastic. No. You just said the right words for the person to close up and to no longer listen. But if you talk to someone who has an opposite mental framework, then you can hear, tell me more about it, and then you have a real supporter. There is no right or wrong. The away from, they mitigate risk very well, and you need people like that in your community. It's important to train yourself in better understanding these mental frameworks so you don't create these very awkward situations where people tend to close up. Yes, you find a way to engage with people more easily. Remember, there is no right or wrong. And we all have these mental frameworks. They're based on how we actually have grown up, our own experiences. We all need everyone, but we need to talk to each other the right way so we understand better what the other means. In the guide, you will also find a 7-day action plan. And that is to help you really go step by step. First of all, be ready to no longer feel overwhelmed. It's one of the objectives, right? You cannot really continue to give, and not take back in. So you will find the support where you least expect it, and it never stops amazing me. You have to take a leap of faith here. Offering support back is key in boosting influence at work. You start by doing that, others will do that with you. And this is how you are less and less overwhelmed. It brings respect. And people suddenly become interested in your vision and in the solutions you've been carrying too silently until now. An individual approach is essential to get collective action. This is the paradox. You have to understand each colleague's motivation, each colleague's preferred way to make a decision, so that it creates a principle of liking. People are often easily persuaded by someone they like and someone who pays attention to them. Commitment and consistency also are key. So our actions, our values, our feelings, our beliefs, they do need to always be aligned with our commitments. So people can always trust you. So just to recap, here are the steps that help you boost your influence at work. First, just try to focus on understanding various languages and communication patterns. The Influence Champions Guide articulates 3 NLP meta programs to help you understand the patterns for motivation, orientation, and decision-making. Then activate your personal network, choosing the right approach for each of your colleagues that you want to work with. Develop your community based on shared values. Values are a very powerful tool, not on function, not on your understanding of how influential this person is, but on shared values, because you will be strong together. Download the Influence Champions Guide, of course. The link is on the webpage. Don't forget that nothing is more contagious than a smile. Practice slowing down and make each conversation count. That is so important. Consider the needs and the challenges of your interlocutors. They will appreciate so much that the whole process will be even fun and meaningful. Remember, you have the power to influence and lead. It's right there. It's not far. Download the Influence Champions Guide and make the magic happen to your success.